much of the pain on the planet has to do with the lack of access to energy. Can you stay warm? Can you get food and water? Can you get hospital care? All that has to do with energy access. If there is a fundamental pattern, which makes sense to me that evolution would be efficient in that way, and we can align with that pattern to create new technologies that will solve these problems, then it's worth it to me to open my mind to these socially taboo subjects.
If the new energy technologies were to be set free worldwide, the change would be profound. It would affect everybody. It would be applicable everywhere. These technologies are absolutely the most important thing that's happened in the history of the world.
Lonnie Johnson is what you would call a prolific inventor. The engineer holds more than 100 patents, inspired to create ever since he was a child.
I was always curious about how things worked. I would take my siblings' toys apart to, sometimes I put them back together, sometimes I use parts to make something else totally different.
When he was a teenager, Johnson won an engineering contest with a robot he built while growing up in the segregated South.
We were the only black school represented, but Linux was such an impressive piece of work that we were able to walk away with first place.
Years later, as an engineer for NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, Johnson helped design the Galileo mission to Jupiter and the Mars Observer projects. But Johnson's biggest claim to fame was engineering this toy, the Super Soaker squirt gun. More than $1 billion in sales later, Johnson had the resources to work on his real life's mission, finding ways to power the world without polluting it.
That was my strategy because I was having a lot of trouble getting investors or people to support the research that I wanted to do in the hard science area.
The engineer started 2 companies, located them in what was once a blighted Atlanta neighborhood, and hired fellow scientists to work on his mission.
We've done some things at the research level that a lot of people have predicted were impossible and could not work.
Johnson and his team spent 7 years developing this lithium-air battery. A battery, he says, provides 10 times more energy than the most powerful batteries now on the market.
Whereas the auto industry now is trying to get to 100 miles on a single charge, you'd actually be able to charge your car and drive up to 1,000 miles on one charge nonstop. So that would eliminate the reservation that a lot of people have about electric cars.
vacuum was extraordinarily energetic. I became very much impressed with the idea that here we were in a thing we just thought of as empty space. You know, the vacuum sounds like it's absolutely nothing. And in fact, it was the most energetic thing in the entire universe. It was incredibly energetic. And when I looked into the particle physics that we had to take, it was also acting and interacting with every charge in the universe and every piece of mass. So it wasn't something that wasn't interacting with things. It was generating all the forces that we use to move stuff around and get things done. So think about it from this term. All of a sudden, there's a basic mechanism that generates all the forces of nature. But we're not trying to engineer the mechanism. We're waiting until we get the force, and then we use the force to do something. So the obvious implication is if we would learn to engineer that vacuum flux before it interacts with mass and generates those forces, my goodness, think about what you could do. You could do almost anything in the field of energy and all of this stuff and take it directly out of the vacuum. So that really got my attention.
Now, thanks to a report from the ACCC that we read so that you don't have to, we can explain the real reason bills have gone up. About a fifth of your bill is due to a spike in retail costs such as marketing and advertising, plus retailers putting up prices just because they wanted to make more money. 15% of the increase is down to things we've done to cut emissions, such as overly generous subsidies for solar panels. Real costs come from two other areas. The first is wholesale electricity, the power that your energy provider buys in bulk from the generators. This has gone up for a number of reasons, each one so annoying that you want to glass Thomas Edison with his own light bulb. There's been a botched transition from coal to renewables, confusion over climate policy and a lack of competition in the energy market. And there hasn't been a lot of motivation to fix this since some energy generators and energy retailers are actually the same company, which can pass these extra costs on to you. Yes, the energy monopoly is like real monopoly. It's not fun and it tears families apart. The single biggest reason your power bill has gone up is network costs, often called the poles and wires. And yes, that does technically add up to 101%. The ACCC said it's a rounding thing. I say it's just another way we're all getting screwed. Poles and wires might be an unlikely suspect, but there are a lot of them. In fact, there are too many.
In 3 states, the ACCC finds significant overinvestment in networks, ripping billions of dollars of extra revenue from consumers. That alone adds up to $200 to an average home's annual power bill.
The policy put in place to prevent blackouts was gamed by the companies that control the grid to buy things they didn't need and then put them on your bill, which is bold. It is bold. If a waiter did so much as add a coffee I didn't order to my bill, I would stage a loud protest. But don't worry, it's not all bad news. The energy market is working very well for some.
AGL has tripled its profits while admitting households are facing cost of living pressures. Australia's biggest electricity generator made $1.59 billion net profit last year. That's up 194%.
So the system is broken and we're all getting screwed. And that's how come that.
Instead of hurting people or working to their detriment, let's try to free them. Let's give them a better economy, a better life, freedom from diseases, freedom from hunger and starving to the... You know how many people are starving? 1/3 of the human population went to bed last night hungry.
Basically, it's magnetic attraction and magnetic repulsion that provide the movement or the moment of the motor.
Can you understand why some scientists are sceptical about it?
There is no physicist or engineer who has looked at our motor or has looked at our figures who says it doesn't work.
Lou is an electrician and John a businessman in Cairns in far north Queensland. The two unlikely inventors have been tinkering with their machine for 6 years. They've applied for an international patent and have been swamped by people wanting a piece of the action.
These are the coils. We mentioned the coils don't get hot.
Local businessman Alex Roma is one of the many offering money to help develop the generator.
If it proves up to be what they say it is, it certainly would be something I'd invest in.
John has also spoken to millionaire inventor George Lewin, the man who came up with the Triton workbench and who's now setting up a fund to stop Australian inventions going overseas.
There's an opportunity here, I think, to share an invention with the world that is beyond anything that we've ever contemplated before.
Anybody who says it doesn't work hasn't seen it or hasn't looked at our figures. They haven't reviewed it. If they look at it, they'll all agree with us that it does work.
John says the household generator should be available in a year and sell for about $5,000. If he's right, it will make him much more.
And how much do you think your technology could be worth to you?
I have absolutely no idea.
We could be talking about millions of dollars here?
Yes, very definitely talking millions of dollars, but I'd hesitate to even take a stab at it.
Good idea.
If you're any of the 7 million viewers that have seen me on social media, you know that I have invented a device that extracts electromagnetic energy from all around us and transfers it into electrical. And that also got the attention of Anonymous, who posted, "We should clone this kid" on their Facebook page. I'm a little bit paranoid from it. Too much for a shy 13-year-old such as myself to handle, I fear. So, as you can imagine, I obviously didn't have many friends. How else would I have all this time? But hopefully, hopefully that'll change now that I'm here at Nexus. Woo!
A modern-day inventor, Adam Trombley, was inspired by Tesla's work and by the possibilities of the torus. Trombley built a dynamo, a direct current generator that accessed electrical power right out of the air.
We were trying to demonstrate that by mimicking the magnetic field of a planet and rotating this device, we could actually create a dynamo that would work. And in fact, it did work, and it does work. So when we contemplate nature, when we contemplate Jupiter, or we contemplate a dynamo like the Earth rotating in space, we're basically talking about a magnet which is rotating in space. And the lines of flux of the magnet are pouring down and through in this toroidal pattern of the magnetic field. It's also expanding and contracting. It's breathing. It's taking in the energy of space literally and transforming it. Right here in this toroid, we have enough energy to transform the entire Earth. And that's not just a theoretical statement, it's literally true. To contemplate the implications of this means that every single place on Earth suddenly has power. Every single person on Earth suddenly has power. We have universal abundance.
Trombley had been invited to demonstrate one of his generators at the United Nations and the US Senate. But these events were undermined by the first Bush administration. Then the device itself was taken in a government raid.
So that's one thing we have. We have the giant industrial, or really economic cartels in energy. And it's not one cartel. So there are many, many groups in energy. And each of those has become very powerful in its own area, and each one does not wish to see simple little electrical taps pulling out enormous energy from the vacuum. They would much rather see you burning a lot more oil and so forth. So yes, in my view, there is a very active suppression effort by those kinds of folks. Part of that goes into very unique areas. They don't do it so much. It's not totally mafia type stuff. It's not like, you just flat get shot. There's some of that. Machiavelli is not dead. He still lives. And these are the games that are played, and it's particularly played in the systems where people are trying to build over-unity systems. It's been very effective in stopping some of them. Lethal force is used. I worked with an inventor, for example, the Sparky Sweet is quite well known, and he was shot at once with a silenced rifle a sniper rifle from about 300 yards. The only thing that saved his life was he was an old guy and very feeble, there towards that part of his life, and he was stumbling as he coming up the steps, and he fell down. He just flat fell down on the steps, caught his foot and fell right forward, and as his head went forward, the bullet went right by where his head was. And of course, the assassin was never found. So there are many cases like that. Some are killed. I believe MARINOV, I believe to be a kill. I don't believe MARINOV jumped off a building when he was excited on the way to to talk about his invention and so forth.
One of the scientists we were going to interview for this film was Dr. Eugene Mallove, an engineer from MIT and Harvard, and editor of Infinite Energy magazine, which covers both theoretical and technological developments in the new energy field. Dr. Mallove was mysteriously beaten to death in 2004.
You have to understand, you know, they killed my best friend. They killed my mom. They killed my dog. They killed 2 of my girlfriends. Okay, you have to understand there is something here that is significant.
I need to get back in the laboratory I have a couple devices that are going to help the energy crisis and help, you know, cure people of very simple diseases. And my wish is just honestly to clean up the planet, the oceans first, which I can do with under a year. I mean, with the technology that I've already invented, the technology that a lot of my colleagues know I have, that is in very safe places, that, you know, we can do this. It's just, we want to be able to do it without getting killed.
They visited me and they said, you know, Smith, what are you doing? I told them what I was doing. They already knew what I was doing. And they were like, don't teach anyone about this. And they said, you know, don't hook it up to the grid and you'll be okay. You know,
yeah, but once you do that,
try to. So what are you going to do now? You got a working system.
Yeah.
It's not what we wanted. And the whole thing is to like.
They did not want you to succeed.
Right. So the way I was able to bring it out of the closet was I hooked up a battery to it.
Is this the BEDINI system?
Well, this is a modified BEDINI system, the third one he made. It's the only high voltage BEDINI system that I'm aware of. It's not the ones you see on Amazon or on TV. This is a very.
Let's take a look at
yeah, please check this out.
Go. This is amazing.
What's going on over here? So look, this is self-oscillation. So we got a nice pulse train.
That was all yours?
So the pulse train is self-oscillation. So the system is set up so it's biased. So when it turns off, it creates, you know, a reverse field, and turns back on, it creates the other side, and it goes back and forth. And if it's a big enough magnetic field, it means it can self-oscillate.
You developed that?
Yeah, I helped build that.
Okay.
You know, the BEDINI brothers were the ones that we acquired it from a long time ago, and it was funny, not funny, it was unfortunate and actually horrific when we started to do the validation on this just a few years ago.
Does it work?
Yes, it works great. But we had come across a couple stumps, and it was like, well, let's just call John up and see, you know, maybe he could say something, and we did, and we couldn't get a hold of him. So I was, well, call his brother up. And we were like, they called me and said, John died.
Ugh.
And I said, well, just call his brother. And they said, well, he died too, at the exact same time.
What are the odds
at
of
the
that?
exact same time. And no one talks about this.
Jeez.
It's like, why don't people talk about this?